This is the story of Goldia. This story is authored by Shayla Looks. Begin in Chapter 1, The Finest Horse in the World. One spring morning it was fine and beautiful out, and Goldia was fine happily. She was a young horse now and was very pretty. She was with her mom now, and she did not care about much of her other doings, but preferred to be called Goldia, which nobody called her. Her mother was a fine horse with golden mane and tail, and a golden coat. So on. Her father was all white, had a gold mane and tail, and had a white coat. She herself had a gold mane and tail and a white coat. She was beautiful and oh so lovely and peaceful she looked. It was a fine, beautiful creature she was, and she ate nothing but she drank lots of water. She drank lots of her mother's milk too, and she was in fact the loveliest horse in the world. If so, she would have snorted all over her mother at her birth. But that was not so anyhow. She loved her mother, and she thought her mother was the grandest creature in the world. She loved it, and so that was Chapter 1, the end. Chapter 2, Book 1. That morning, Goldia began to explore the barn. She found a hole in the hedge, and from the other side, she heard a growling. Grrr. Woof, 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 woof. It barked, and she drew back. A strange dog came out. He was shaggy and full of burrs. He bowed and said, "My name is Bill. I'm a sheepdog, and I want to know your name." "My name is Goldia," she said softly. "I do not mean any harm to you, but I am curious who you are." "I am a dog," he said sternly. "I do not rule these lands, and I will take you somewhere." He ran along the hedge, giving her growling signals from behind the hedge. She followed it through the hayfield, and then past the sawmill, and then up to a great gate. There was a stone arch over it, and there was a great rusty gate. It was stuck open, and it was rusty, stuck into some piles of mud. She walked through and found herself on the other side of a grand field. She looked about her. There was a forest before her, and a field with grass and beautiful flowers. There were wild orchards about. She looked about her and saw not much but a beautiful green. The end. That was the end of Chapter 2. Goldia, authored by Shayla Looks. Chapter 3, The Barn Fire. That morning, as Bill and Goldia walked firmly over the ground, way over the field, which covered over a beautiful patch of white flowers that nobody had ever seen before. Then an open treeless forest. That was an old forest long ago. The trees had been cut down, and no more of it dwelled. I think I have an owner for you," said Bill happily. "Let me take her to you." He took her across the field into a great gate. He took her to a gate and led her through an opening. A fair dog greeted her. He was called Percheron. He said to her, "This is my place. I guard this place truly, and I have thirst buildings, and I command all my friends. There are many animals here. Now, tonight you'll be given the best stall that we have here," said Percheron. "Now, I will show you in." He led her through. All that day, Bill was doing other things that Goldia did not know about. That night, Goldia went to a stall. It was smoky all around, and there was a window. It was open, but the fresh breeze did not come. She stared out the window. The moon rose, and the stars shimmered. And then heavy riding boots rushed down the corridor. "Bonfire!" Somebody cried at once. She shivered. Smoke filled her room. She went straight out and went to the main room. Wooden barrels were setting on fire. The hay was smoldering. Fire was running across the stone floor, and all was on fire. The next morning, she went about and explored everything. Bill, then a voice said from behind the fence, "Goldia, Goldia, Goldia. I have a better owner for you. Come, I will show you." Bill came out. He said, "We must go. It is very important we shall go." "Of course," said Bill. So that day, all they went, walking about, running openly through. And so they did. That was the end. That's what I meant.
Yeah, you're done.
Goldia again. Authored by Shayla Esme Loops. Sarah. One fine morning, as Bill said to Goldia, "I think I should be happy to offer you a new owner." "What sort of new owner?" said Goldia. "Well, we'll see. That's very obvious. I don't know," said Bill. "I think I should be happy to give you her. Her name is Sarah. She's very, very, very polite." "Oh, that's beautifully nice of you," said Goldia. "I would love a new owner. Oh, every bit. I think I would be very happy to." So he led her away over a field happily. They left the pastures of Thomas's yard and set out. Looking back at the windmill, they smiled happily and then began their long journey away. Through the old forest with trees chopped down, some trees still stood, covered in green, with spreading branches. They were gnarled and all covered in moss, with bark, shaggy. Nothing they should think so that they would be in Sarah's house in a few minutes. And then he led her away, and then over to a rusty iron gate. He reached out and shook it with his paw and rammed himself against it. A door opened to the farmhouse, and out came a lady. She had a white apron with a black pocket and a pink pocket, a sea green skirt, and a pink shirt. She had long black hair and blue eyes and pink lips. She was very, very polite looking. Beside her went a black sheep. He was most horribly beautiful. She would never see such a lovely sheep before. She smiled, and then the lady went up and opened the gate. She let Bill and Goldia in. That for a few minutes, Bill went away, and she took Goldia and spoke to her. There is much history. Bill's mother was my dog, and I loved her. She had her puppies and died a few days after. I loved her with all my heart. I shared her with all my neighbors. Thomas, too. He's a horrible owner. He brings every animal hate for him. So on, whips and so. The other people of the village love Bill, and so they say that he's a delightful dog to see. And all was on. There are pigs, donkeys, and cows and sheep. But Goldia said nothing to them. And when the children see Bill running past their doors, the village street, they come running out, crying, "Bill, Bill, Bill, stop, stop, come and lick us up." And Bill turns around and comes, "Woof, woof, 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 woof," and barks up them, and then he lifts them all, then he licks them all up. And then they laugh and play, and then he says to them, how was your week? How did you do? What would you like to do today?" And they would all say, "Let's play." They bring out their ball, they would throw the ball. He would catch it and bring it back, and they would throw it in all over again. "He's a really good sheepdog," said Sarah. "Well, he's a very good one. There's no police in our neighborhood. No, not one." And so that was the end of chapter 4. The end of chapter 4. Eve Goldia again, authored by Shayla Esme Lutz. Sarah and the Pig. One fine morning, as Bill and Goldia were striding about, she was walking with a swift glow. She stopped in front of a pigsty and stared with amazement. In front of her was a nice pig. He was old and very fat. He had floppy ears, and he was standing before her. He was stuck in a big bog of mud, and he was sometimes silly looking, and he stared at her with very small, tiny eyes that shimmered and glowed and sparkled amazingly. She said to him, I think you'd be a silly pig to be here." "I am a very old pig," he said. "I do not know this place. But I am very new to Sarah." "Oink, oink, oink, oink," he said. Bill barked. "Woof, woof, woof," at him. She looked at him and stared. "I wonder what we are going to do now," she said. She looked up at the barn. It was red and white. She stared with amazement. The doors were all open and the windows were thrust open. Then there came the crowing of the rooster for morning. Came the goats, and they came running in huge flocks, as beautiful and proud as ever. They were snow-white goats, and were healthy and fat. One was beside a young suckling, which had a red collar around his neck. He was chewing grass, and she was chewing grass too. If she would have been paying attention, she would have seen everything happening. As the grass full of dewdrops came, a black goat, billy goat, was before her, and he had a red collar, and he was chewing oak leaves from an oak tree. And he walked up to the pig and he said, "Gee, Piggy, I wonder what you are going to do now." Boar stared at him and said, I'm not going to do anything now. I am very continent now. I am not hanging out with you now. I am very unhappy about this. This is not my thing now. I am not happy about this at all. Anyways, goodbye. 6. Goldia again, authored by Shayla Esme Lutz. Beginning. Chapter 6. Goldia meets a friend. After that extraordinary meeting with the extraordinary pigs and goats, a donkey, he was black with a brown coat with black mane and tail. He walked up to Goldia and smiled, and he said, "I am Benjamin, and I am a very good one, and I am going to have you, and my name owner is Sarah, and I love her very much. I am a new, and I am coming back from hunting berries, and I'm going to be eating in a few minutes. I am not very happy about this morning because I got chased down by a wolf, and I am not letting those lovely snow-white sheep of Sarah's get alone, and Bill better get to work now because I am very unhappy, and I am not going to be watching the sheep all today, so I am going to be grazing today. This is my day off, and it's Bill's turn to be watching those sheep. Because he's a real sheepdog, but Sarah needs a proper sheepdog in order to get it right. And now I am going to be after a wolf can run through a hole in the hedge and chase around the chickens. So, cluck, 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 cluck. Gobble, 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 cried the chickens and turkeys all at once. The pigs started to say, "Oink, oink, oink, oink," and the dogs started to bark, "Woof, woof, woof, woof," and the sheep started to bleat, "Bah, bah, bah," and the goats started to say, "Nah, nah," and the horses started to say, "Nee, nee," and the donkeys just stayed quiet. And it was all a bunch of noise to Goldia, and she just stared with amazement at the billow and willow trees that glortened amongst the orchard of apple trees and pear trees. There are blueberry bushes all around with raspberries amongst them, high-growing sunflowers and tulips all about. In a lovely place, and there was an open field nooketed for grazing animals. It was all fenced off with a nice kept hedge with living growing plants. An old rusty gate, shut and bolted and locked. It was all quiet, nothing much but a bit singing of the robins in the hedge, singing and the sweet swinging of the roses and the chirping of the birds all around. And the soft crickets, the grass was full of dewdrops from the morning's misty rain. She did not know what she might do, but it was a beautiful thing, and she must never forget it. The end. Chapter 7. Goldia again, authored by Shayla Esme Lutz. Chapter 7 again. Goldia gets followed to a horse fair with Bill. Bill was very excited that morning. He jumped about, barking and woofing all around and growling at everybody. He was followed Goldia all over the place. He watched her as she got blue ribbons tied to her mane and tail. Her mane got plaited beautifully, and so her tail did too. Her hooves were polished, her fur was brushed, her fur was polished too. Until she shimmered with a beautiful, glimmering fling that she had never seen before. Sarah knew all kinds of tricks for horses, and then after a while she put her saddle and a bridle on her and mounted her. Bill and Benjamin went with her. They went along with a long place that she never seen before, and at last they came. Then Bill said, "I am going to go back now, because I am not very happy about this. I should not follow you very far now." So he ran off into a hedge of a field. Full of sheep. He then persuaded to turn away, and then he disappeared behind the hedge. Benjamin looked at Goldia and said, Well, go on." They walked along, single file on the sidewalk, until they came to the busy town. There's horse carriages all about, and cars and streetcars and trucks and motors roaring, stamping hoofs of horses, and people riding horses all around. Goldia had never seen such a busy place. And then they went along on a turn beside a field, with pine trees looming up, and nicely cut and trimmed with a green hedge. It was a living, and it had cactuses and bushes all about. They were nicely trimmed and kept nice and well. There's an open field. It was on the other side, and no trees, and there was a huge building, so big many could see it. There's a place for a helicopter to land. And coming down for it was a helicopter. It was landed. It had soldiers and police in it. And after it came an airplane landed, a private one. And said in big letters there, "Private airplane carrying the President of America." Goldia looked around her. She was frightened, though. There were many other horses and ponies and donkeys around. She stared with amazement. It was all but a bit of noise. Then there was a lady. She was wearing a snow-white dress with a blue bow made from thick ribbon tied around in her back. She had long black hair that was curly and floated over her shoulders, and sparkly blue eyes. In one hand she carried a whip. None of the sort. Goldia had never seen anything like it before. Benjamin shivered and stamped his hoof. He said, "I do not like this. This concerns me." And when the horses saw her, she lifted a whistle to her lips and blew it. Woo! Goldia sprung into the line of the horses and stood in a complete line. Sarah got off her, and Benjamin got beside Goldia. "March," said the lady, and all the horses marched at once, around and around and around. Full gallop, she cried, and the horses galloped. Their manes and tails flew out behind them. With whistling cries, the whip flew amongst them, and they came to an easy stop and stood in a line. Their eyes closed, their heads lifted high, and their hoofs to the ground. They stood frozen, like they had turned to stone, not even daring to breathe. The lady watched with amazement and looked around. She looked at Goldia. Goldia opened her eyes and whinnied, "Nee!" There's a long silence, and nothing moved after that. Then at last was broken by Goldia, saying, "Master, you will not dare to whip me nor blow whistles to me, but voice commands. That is all I know. I do not know the meaning of whistles nor whips, for I am not that well trained, but I may be fair and beautiful, like the stories of the elven horses. This was long ago," she said. "I did not dare, but when it was like the Lord of the Rings. I am like one of the horses from there. I am like elven horse, but I am not of the sort, because I am a fair horse, and I am very proud and beautiful, but nothing should ever take me astray from anything ever seen before." The end.